The stars had watched silently for thousands of years as the Zayari ascended, fell, and rose again. Now they were back, not as ghosts of a forgotten age, but as gods of war. Their ships moved like shadows across the sky, silent and unstoppable. One by one, the known worlds bent the knee or burned to ash. Earth was next. The leaders of Earth tried to talk, to reason, to buy time. They sent messages, offered trade, even begged for peace. The Zayari answered with silence and then with fire. The first attack came without warning. Cities lit up in fire. Millions died in minutes. The world screamed, but no one came. The other species had already fallen or fled. Humanity was alone. In a quiet town far from the smoke and ruin, Ethan Cole watched the skies burn. Once he had been a soldier, then a teacher. Now he was just a man watching his world die. He sat in his small study, surrounded by old books and broken dreams, listening to the news reports. The words were calm, but the fear behind them was clear. "We are in talks with the Zayari," said the voice on the screen. "A peaceful solution is still possible." Ethan shook his head. There was no peace with monsters who only understood power. He had seen this before, not in his life, but in the pages of history. Empires did not come to talk. They came to rule or to kill. He stood up and walked outside. The air smelled of dust and fear. People gathered in the streets, some crying, others praying. Children clung to their parents, not understanding why the sky was on fire. Ethan knew what had to be done. He packed only what he needed: a few clothes, a notebook, and a small weapon he had kept for years, just in case. He had no plan, no army, no hope. But he had anger, and that would have to be enough. As he walked away from his home for what might be the last time, he looked up at the burning sky and whispered, "If we must fall, we will not kneel." The smoke had not yet settled when the world began to fight back. In the ruins of what was once a major city, a small group of soldiers and civilians gathered in the basement of a collapsed building. The lights flickered. The air was thick with dust and the silence was heavy with fear. But among them was Mia Harper, a woman who had spent years working in the shadows, long before the Zayari came. She looked around at the faces watching her, tired, scared, but ready. "We hit them where they don't expect," she said, pointing at a holographic map floating above the table. "They think we're broken. They think we'll beg for mercy next." One man shook his head. "They've got ships in the sky, weapons we can't even understand. How do we fight that?" Mia smiled, cold and sharp. "We don't fight like an army. We fight like ghosts." Hours later, under the cover of night and the noise of distant fires, Mia and her team moved through the wreckage of a downed Zayari scout ship. It had crashed on the edge of the city during the first strike, and the enemy had left it behind, thinking no human could use it. They were wrong. Mia's team worked fast. Engineers stripped parts from the wreck while hackers tried to break into the onboard systems. The mission was simple: steal what they could, learn what they could, and make the Zayari pay for every inch of Earth they took. Then the alarm sounded. A patrol had found them. "Move," Mia shouted. Gunfire cracked through the dark. Explosions lit up the sky. One of her people fell, screaming, as energy blasts tore through metal and stone. But they didn't stop. By the time the Zayari reinforcements arrived, the humans were gone, vanished into the night with stolen tech, data drives, and something more valuable than either: hope. Back in the hidden base, the captured data was decrypted. Inside was more than just maps and codes. It was a weakness, a flaw in the shield system of the larger Zayari warships. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had something real. Not just survival, not just anger, but a way to strike back, and strike back hard. The fire of resistance spread like wind through dry grass. What started as a stolen data drive and a handful of fighters hiding in the ruins became something more. Across the broken cities and hidden bases, people began to move. Not just soldiers, but engineers, hackers, doctors, and even farmers. Anyone who could help survive, anyone who could fight. In a small mountain town turned rebel base, Daniel Ruiz worked non-stop. Once a quiet scientist who preferred books, to crowds he now spent his days covered in grease and sweat, pulling apart Zayari tech and trying to understand it. Next to him, teams of young minds worked with stolen tools and old machines, building weapons no one thought possible. This should not work, Daniel muttered, looking at a crude power cell hooked into a Zayari energy core. Then don't let it know that, said a young woman beside him, handing him a wrench. They called themselves the Ashborn, a name whispered on secret channels and painted on walls in burnt stone. They were not one army. They were many small groups, linked by stolen comms and shared pain. Each cell fought alone, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could react. And then there was Lena Torres. Once a war reporter chasing stories for news feeds, she now carried a camera not to show the world, but to remind the world it still existed. From deep inside a hidden cave network, she broadcast messages to every human ship, station, and survivor camp. Her voice became a symbol. Calm, strong, unbroken. "We are not gone," she said in one message, standing in front of a burning flag made from old cloth and ash. "We are not slaves, we are not afraid, we are still here, and we are fighting back." Her words reached ears far beyond Earth. Ships in orbit, miners on asteroids, even prisoners held by the Zayari. They all heard her. And some began to escape. Others sabotaged from within. More joined the fight. The Zayari thought they had crushed humanity, but ghosts do not die. Ghosts only grow stronger in the dark, and humanity was learning how to haunt the stars. The sky was no longer safe. Zayari. Warships hung above the continents like dark clouds before a storm. They had seen what humanity could do. They had felt the sting of stolen weapons and broken codes. Now they answered with fire from the stars. Planets fell silent one by one. Colony worlds burned in days. The Zayari did not just attack, they erased. Planet crackers tore into rock and soil. Atmospheric burners turned air to poison. Oceans boiled, forests vanished, cities became ash. Humanity tried to fight. They struck back with stolen ships and hacked drones. But for every victory there were 10 losses. In the halls of the last Earth Council, leaders argued. Some begged for peace. Others called for more attacks. But Ethan Cole stood apart, watching maps light up with red as more human worlds died. He knew what had to be done. "We cannot win if we keep fighting for our homes," he said. So we stopped giving them homes to take. The plan was simple, cruel, necessary. Retreat. Leave the planets behind. Take what can be saved, and scorch the rest. At first, no one spoke. Then came the screams. People refused to believe it. How could they destroy their own worlds? How could they leave everything behind? But the Zayari would not stop, and if they wanted land to rule, they would find only dust. The order went out. Evacuate the colonies. Move fast. Take only what can be carried. The rest, everything else, must burn. Space stations fired into planetary cores. Terraforming. Engines reversed their purpose. Bombs hidden for decades were finally used, not to build, but to erase. Mars was first, then Europa, Titan, Ganymede. Earth watched as its children died. Then came the hardest choice, the home world itself. Not every city, not every person. Many had already fled. But those who stayed lit the final fires, miles underground. Daniel Ruiz helped trigger the collapse of old energy plants. Deep in orbit, Maya Harper guided the last escape ships away from the sun's light, and, on the surface, Lena Torres stood alone with her camera. She recorded the end. "This is Earth," she said, voice steady, eyes dry. "And we will not let them have it." Behind her, the sky glowed red. As the last humans left their birthplace behind, the planet burned, and behind them, the Zayari found nothing but silence. No life, no power, only scorched stone and dead stars. Space had always been cold, but now it was emptier than ever. The last human ships drifted through the dark. No home to return to. No planets left to call their own. They were ghosts, not just in name, but in truth. a people without a world. They called themselves the Fleet of Ash. No banners flew, no flags waved. Only broken ships and tired souls kept moving, hiding in the silence between stars. Maya Harper stood on the bridge of a stolen Zayari scout cruiser, now renamed the Wraith. It was fast, quiet, and deadly when needed. She led small strike teams into enemy space, hitting supply lines, raiding outposts, vanishing before the Zayari could respond. "We can't win," she told her crew once, "but we can hurt them enough that they wish they never came." And they did. Every mission took something from the enemy: fuel, data, time. Every attack made them doubt their control. Every dead ship reminded them that humanity was not gone. Meanwhile, far from the front lines, Daniel Ruiz worked in secret aboard a hidden station built inside an old mining asteroid. With what little tech remained, he pushed forward with his most dangerous idea yet: a weapon that could break the Zayari's shield systems for good. It would take time. It would take sacrifice. But it was possible. Back in the fleet, Lena Torres still spoke. Her voice, calm and strong, echoed across stolen comms and rebel networks. She told stories of lost cities, of brave fighters, of children born in space who had never touched soil. She reminded people why they fought. Not for revenge, not for power, but for the right to exist. "They wanted us gone," she said in one broadcast. "They burned our homes, killed our families, tried to erase us. But we are still here, and we will not be forgotten." Some ships turned back after hearing her words. Some soldiers who had lost hope picked up their weapons again. Some prisoners held by the Zayari found strength in her voice. The Zayari began to fear her more than the bombs. They hunted her relentlessly, but she stayed ahead, always moving, always speaking. In the darkness, humanity had no armies, but they had fighters like Maya. They had minds like Daniel. They had voices like Lena. And as long as those things remained, the war was not over. It had only just begun. The plan was madness, but so were they. After years of running, hiding, and bleeding in the dark, humanity had finally built something more than hope. Daniel Ruiz stood before a crude metal table in the heart of a hidden base, staring at a device no bigger than a shoebox. "This is it," he said. "If it works, we punch a hole in their shields big enough to fly a fleet through." Mia Harper looked at him like he had lost his mind. "You're saying this little box can take down a Zayari warship?" "Not just one," he said. "A whole line of them." It was insane and perfect. Word spread fast. Ethan Cole called for every ship that could still fight to gather. They came from every corner of space. Old freighters turned fighters, stolen scout ships, even modified mining rigs. They were not a navy. They were a last breath. The target: a Zayari command hub orbiting a dead world. It was heavily guarded, deep in enemy space, and crawling with warships. But it was also the center of their control. If humanity could destroy it, the Zayari would lose coordination across half the sector. The mission was suicide. They went anyway. Maya led the first wave, flying low in the Wraith, cloaked and silent. Her job was to slip inside the outer defenses and plant the quantum destabilizer on the main shield generator. Daniel stayed behind on the command ship, hands shaking as he watched the data stream come in. "Too slow," he muttered. "You need to move faster." "I'm moving," Mia snapped over comms. "Unless you want me dead." Behind her, the rest of the fleet dropped out of hyperspace in bursts of light. Guns fired, missiles flew, ships exploded. Chaos. But in the middle of it, all Mia made it. She planted the device and triggered the charge. The shields flickered, then fell. "Now," Ethan shouted. The fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. For the first time, humans did not run. They attacked, and the Zayari felt the fury of a species that had nothing left to lose. The battle raged. Ships burned. People died. But when the dust cleared, the command hub was gone, and the Zayari were afraid. The stars had seen empires rise and fall. Now they watched as one tried to end another. The Zayari did not beg. They did not run. They sent a final message across human channels, cold, sharp, and clear. "You have won nothing. Lay down your weapons or be erased. It was not a warning. It was a death sentence. But humanity had already burned its worlds, and ghosts do not fear the dark. Ethan Cole stood on the bridge of the last command ship, the Endurance, looking at the gathered fleet. It was not much. Broken ships, old hulls, patched up fighters. But they were all that was left, and they were ready. "We fight," he said simply. Mia Harper led the first wave, flying through the storm of enemy fire in the Wraith. She danced between warships like a shadow, planting charges, cutting lines, striking where they least expected. Behind her, the fleet hit hard. Daniel Ruiz's quantum destabilizers fired, tearing holes in Zayari shields. For the first time, their mighty warships bled like humans did. The battle raged across space. Ships collided, explosions lit up the void. People screamed, people died, but they did not stop. In the heart of the Zayari flagship, the High Command watched, in silence as their forces broke apart. They had never known defeat. Now they faced annihilation. And still, they did not kneel, until the final shot. A stolen Zayari dreadnought, piloted by rebels, fired at point-blank range. The blast tore through the command deck. The flagship shattered. With their leaders gone, the Zayari armada fell into chaos. Some fled, others surrendered. Most just stopped fighting. When the smoke cleared, only silence remained. Humanity had won. Not with numbers, not with power, but with will. Ethan Cole looked out over the ruins of the enemy fleet and spoke words that would echo across the stars. No one kneels. Not today. Back on the Endurance, Lena Torres recorded it all. Not just the battle, but the cost. The names of the dead. The stories of the lost. The truth of what they had done. She sent it across every channel, to every world, to every species watching from the dark. This was humanity's message to the galaxy. We are not yours. We are not broken. We are free, and we are ghosts no longer.